All right, everyone, I'm excited to introduce my next guest, screenwriter, playwright, director, and author of the brand new book, Cesar Romero, The Joker is Wild. Welcome to the show, Samuel Garza Bernstein. Hey.
Hey,
How are you?
I'm well, thank you. It's been kind of a crazy time with the book coming out, and last week I did 26 radio interviews. It was kind of crazy.
That is a lot of interviews. Well, the topic is amazing, and the cover of your book, Cesar Romero as the Joker, kind of pulls you right in. I wanted to kind of start by just saying, like, this is like I took it off my wall to show you, but like this is on my wall. I got it at Comic-Con, so I have of
Oh,
the
that's
main.
fantastic.
So it's like dot art. It's like dots.
Oh, is it? I can't tell from
Yeah, I know you
you
can't
know,
tell. That's why I was telling you because it's
yeah.
like if there, it just looks it's
Oh,
cool. But yeah,
wow.
yeah.
I can't put my finger on it right now, but the head of the Bradley Beach Historical Society, Bradley Beach, New Jersey, where Caesar's family lived for a time, got me a wonderful illustration of Caesar as the Joker on a surfboard. And you gotta love the surfing Joker.
The surfing Joker is great, and sometimes when I go to Target, there's like this one little weird area in the back by the records where they have like the toys, like collectible toys. And one time they had some Batman 66 things, and I'm pretty sure they had a Joker, a surfing Joker. And I was like, oh, I didn't get it because it's like, when you're there, it's like $20. I don't know, It is. That's like one of those iconic scenes from the show. It's so that's awesome. That is
Well,
awesome.
so iconic they did it twice because it was in the feature film and in one of the episodes. Like they couldn't get enough of him surfing.
No, no. This is not your first book that you've written. You've written other books, and you have even more books coming out. But like, what is your origin story? Like, what got you started in entertainment and writing these books, and just your love and passion for these topics?
I started very young. I started acting when I was 11. Would do these shows where I would be doing like 6 shows a week for months at a time. And, I'm like 11 years old and getting home at midnight and getting up at 6. And, that was just kind of a way of life. And I think it was always kind of a part of me. I mean, I remember being like 6 or 7, and my grandmother had this coffee table book about like old Hollywood. And I would read through it and it felt weirdly familiar. Like I don't know if I believe in reincarnation. I have no idea. But there was a connection. I knew a lot about classic Hollywood at a very young age and started becoming just very, very interested in all of it. When it comes to things like writing about Cesar Romero, I guess what excites me about it is the idea of making it seem like it's happening right now, like you're inside of his experience, that you're discovering things as he discovers them. And it makes it kind of come alive for me. There's a process where it feels a little bit like channeling. I don't mean to imply that I'm actually channeling Cesar Romero. I have no earthly idea if that's possible or real or anything. But the way that my process works is that it feels like that. So what's coming out of me is rooted in this kind of sense that it's actually happening as I'm writing it. I think my background in theater, both as a performer and as a writer, because I started writing it in theater, is helpful to that because it comes very much from a standpoint of character and building a character and what does someone want and what are they doing and what are they feeling. I can't always know, obviously, what someone was feeling 100 years ago, but I can put myself in it's sort of inside of their experience and imagine and ask questions. And the more questions that I ask, the more sort of deeply I think that I'm able to go inside of the experience. Sounds
Wow.
very esoteric. I didn't expect to go there. Usually it's just like, what made you want to write about Cesar Romero? Wow. But that's fascinating.
No, it is fascinating because I mean, Joan Crawford, Cesar Romero. You have another book coming out next year. We can talk a little bit about Roddy McDowall, all like icons. And I imagine, how long does it take to write one of these books, or roughly like?
There are aspects of each one that are kind of happening at the same time. I will say, so I live in Portugal most of the year now, and I'm in Portugal right now. We came here 2 years ago, and in that 2 years, I've written three books, and which is a lot. Other people we know are coming to Portugal to retire, and I'm like, I'm working harder than I've ever worked in my whole life. There's something wrong here. I'm getting this wrong. I don't know. I didn't get a memo somewhere. There's different amounts of research for different projects. The Roddy book, he's got archives at Boston University with so much material that research process took a lot longer. With Caesar, it's very focused on his career. So for that, there's his scrapbooks are at the USC Cinema Television Library. There's archives that he's got stuff in various other libraries and at the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. But a lot of it is also watching his movies. Nice work if you can get it.
I know exactly what you mean because when I'm prepped for interviews and stuff like that, you know, depending on who I'm interviewing, I'd be like, well, yeah, I watched 3 movies. So yes, that was 6 hours, but I don't consider it 6 hours of research. It's likely I may have watched those movies anyway, but this was a great excuse to kind of dive into somebody's career. But I guess it's a lot of time and labor of love to really dive into any of these people, you know, Caesar and Joan and Roddy. And so you have to really want to do that, right? I mean,
Well, it's interesting because I'm actually, I've been talking to my agent about, like what's next and what I want to do and this and that. There is this one problem in that I'm not sure that I could write about somebody that I don't really respect their work and respect their work ethic and just their whole kind of way of going about this, because that's really a lot of how I connect to these people. I mean, I'm like that. It's like I very strongly believe that you need to show up whatever you're doing. When I waited tables, when I was starting out in New York, I showed up, like be there. Don't just half-ass it. So these people that I've written about, they never half-assed anything in their whole lives. I mean, as children, they were like focused, like I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. I respond so much to that. So, like my agent has been suggesting different people and I'm like, yeah, except I don't like them. I can't, I don't, like, it's not, I don't like them, but like, I don't admire their work enough to immerse myself in it for 8 months. Even with ones that I love, not every movie that Caesar or Roddy or Joan made was like fantastic. You are sitting through a lot of stuff where you go, whoa. I wonder what the breakfast meeting was like where everyone talked about, yeah, this is a great idea. You really have to pair. I'm not really somebody that, I don't know, I can't make myself spend that kind of time on somebody that I don't already kind of really get and appreciate.
That makes total sense to me. I mean, if you're putting your whole life into this, if you hated Cesar Romero, which clearly you don't, but I'm saying if you did and you had to write this book, you're not. What's the motivation for you to do the dozens of interviews and tell people you too should go read about this person I don't care about? You know what I mean? You don't want to. You want it to be.
Well,
you want it to be about someone you love, so you put the passion in, and now you're like, read about, get to know. He was more than the Joker.
I was exchanging emails with Scott Berg, who's like a serious writer, like a serious writer, National Book Award winner, biographer kind of guy. And like, I don't think he was a friend of Roddy's. That's why I was exchanging emails. I don't know that when he was writing about Lindbergh or Robert Moses or whoever, I don't know that he was like, oh, I have to be in love with them. I think for a historian, it's probably very different. But I'm not exactly that. I'm not really a historian or scholarly in that way. If anything, I think, well, I don't know what I think. I don't know what I think. I don't know what I was starting
I
to.
think you are a historian, but you have the opportunity to be able to choose the topics you wish to spend your time historianing.
Yeah. Historianing.
um, so when I have to admit, like the only disappointment in this process was when I saw Cesar Romero was a Joker's Wild. Then I heard you're like doing the book on Roddy McDowall, and I'm like, I love Roddy McDowall. The only disappointment I had was that the name of that book wasn't Goes Ape or something like that.
We really went back and forth on just how strongly we were going to hit one of his pop cultural things. With Caesar, it was easy because the Joker is so iconic. But Roddy had such a different kind of career with so many different facets that as much as the publisher and we kind of kept going back and forth and like, how much can we lean into Planet of the Apes and how much do we want to lean into, I don't know, Fright Night or Lassie, or it just kept feeling so reductive. It's going to be called, I don't know, it's behind me. I forget what it's going to be called. It's,
No,
it's
I wrote
Roddy
it.
McDowall.
No, it's a great
It's
name.
Roddy McDowall, An Actor's Life.
From How Green Was My Valley to Lassie to Planet of the Apes. Something like that. Or maybe
Something
that was
like
just a
that.
tagline.
Yeah.
No, I think you made the right choice.
Like I said, we've got the poster already, so it's up there. But
I think you went in the right direction. My idea was I was just like, oh, yeah.
I wish, look, it's easier. It's easier to, that cover with that fabulous, illustration that's by a French artist named Flore McCann. Her work is so amazing. And, you just like, you see that and you want to pick the book up because of our affection for the Joker. I love Caesar in Planet of the Apes, but I just don't feel that way about Cornelius, and it's not his face, it's like a mask. So it's kind of,
That is true.
but we did try. We did, we tried.
You could have multiple covers as you open it up. It could be like the alternative covers that you.
Well, Vanity Fair does that sometimes. They have like these weird alternative covers inside when they're doing like a big issue. We could do that.
All right, so you pick Cesar Romero, and like, what was like the most surprising thing that you discovered during your research?
I had no idea about his family lineage. His grandfather was Jose Marti, who was the liberator of Cuba, like this national hero, a George Washington kind of figure. I had no idea, nor did I know that he grew up wealthy. He was really, really wealthy in the family when he was a child. In press reports, everyone always does the history as if the family lost all their money in the stock market crash, which was not the case. It was the Great Sugar Panic of 1925. I'm sure you've heard of it. His father had a company that made sugar machinery, manufacturing machinery. And I don't remember the figure exactly, but like the price of sugar fell by something like 90%. It really crashed. And they it put them on a spiral where they sort of lost everything. And Caesar going into entertainment at all would have been unthinkable if the family had retained their wealth and position. But because they were relying on him to help support the whole family, he just had a lot more latitude, and he started, he did odd jobs and drove, a delivery truck and did those kind of things, worked in a bank, but he started making better money doing ballroom dancing, and that progressed into a Broadway career, and that led to films. The family needed to be supported, and he was supporting the family, so they really couldn't say anything. But were it not for the Great Sugar Panic of 1925, the world would have not had Cesar Romero as the Joker.
Yeah, what would we be talking about then?
I know. Well, we'd be talking about some other guy.
Maybe it would have been Burgess Meredith would have made The Penguin is Wild.
I mean, Jose Ferrer was on the list to play the Joker. And I'm just like, most people won't remember who he was, but he was like this serious actor who played Cyrano de Bergerac and won an Oscar for it. And you're like, I'm not sure how that would work. And there's this weird rumor that I really don't think is true that Frank Sinatra wanted to play the Joker, which would have been fascinating but disastrous. But, like, no, that that would have just been 100 kinds of wrong. But it would have been somebody, it would have been somebody.
That would have been interesting. Is it his housekeeper taught him to dance?
Yes. Well, one of the maids. And I say one of the maids, not like,
Right. He was rich. They were sugar rich. Right. So we know. Yeah.
So there were like servants. Yeah, they had one of the maids was she danced and she taught him how to dance. And look, he had enormous grace naturally. He took to it so easily, so quickly. With the ballroom dancing, I mean, radio was new. Okay, so never mind like television, radio was new. So when people wanted to do entertainments and they were maybe a little wealthy or whatever, they would put on these tea dances or these, big kind of parties where you would have hired entertainment. One of the features would usually be a couple who does the latest dance style, or, like they would refer to them in, things like that. The latest Latin dance style. So Cesar would show up with his partner and they would dance and get paid and move on to the next one. I mean, there were days that they did this 2 or 3 times a day. And then he did a dance number in his very first Broadway show. It was, they were hired as a team to do this dance number. And that's how he started in the legitimate theater.
Because he hurt himself, right? So he had to kind of move on from dancing.
Well, I mean, this was all sort of happening all at the same time. So it wasn't, he was already trying to do theater, but, he did have an injury. They were doing adagio stuff where it's lifting. So he like had his partner lifted and he felt something like really wrong. Something cracked and moved in his body and it was bad. So he had an injury and he made it through the dance. He didn't drop her, but he really, it put him in a different direction. I mean, honestly, I don't know, especially when people tell their own stories over and over and over again to reporters over the years, things tend to become this happened, which caused this happened, which caused this, when really it was all just sort of happening at the same time. And, it was kind of happenstance and stuff. I'm not entirely sure. Like, I think he probably would have wound up going into theater anyway, because he was naturally somebody who spoke well, who liked performing, he had enormous a self-possession. I think from a very young age, he walked into a room and he's like, I belong here. I think that quality would have led to acting no matter what.
What were some of his milestone early as he was breaking into entertainment?
Well, as he was breaking in, there were 2 shows that were a big deal for him that he did a number of times in a number of different venues. One of them was Strictly Dishonorable, which was was written by Preston Sturges, who became very famous for his crazy comedy films. And he was a very subversive writer. Strictly Dishonorable had Caesar as this Italian opera singer, Lothario, who lived above a speakeasy. And what it looks like is he's going to lure, the ingenue to a life of sin. And, it's going to be terrible. But Preston Sturges kind of turns it around, and her fiance, who's supposed to be like the hero, is actually kind of an asshole. It turns out that Caesar, in all of his sort of florid, like, I'll get you, my pretty, is actually the good guy. And he does wind up with the girl, but it was kind of his first big Latin lover, on stage kind of thing. And he wound up doing that show forever. He did it when he was 50. He did it in summer stock. He did that was his show. He was going to be this Italian opera singer until he died. And he also did Dinner at Eight, which became a very famous movie. He was also kind of a bit of a cad. He was there was a subplot in the story where the chauffeur and I think it's the chef are fighting over a maid, and it kind of goes throughout the story, and he's terrible to her. I mean, he's awful and he's abusive, and the audience loves him. I mean, it was just one of those things where you get the right actor to do sort of terrible things, but you love him enough and you don't mind. I mean, it's horribly not okay anymore. You know, like you could, I'm not sure you could do that show anymore. But at the time, you know, it was considered quite charming to be the abusive rascal. And then when he went off to Hollywood, you know, he did a number of things. He was supposed to kind of be the next big Latin lover at one point. And he did this big movie opposite Marlene Dietrich called The Devil is a Woman. You know, I like to say they were in like dueling shots of their perfect cheekbones and perfect lighting while you're just looking at them going, these people aren't human. They're so beautiful. Like you're just, oh, is there a story happening? I just want to watch that for a variety of reasons. That was a movie that flopped. It was a flop that ended the director's career, that ended his partnership with Marlene Dietrich, that almost ended her career. But, you know, magically, Cesar emerged unscathed. And he wound up just playing a bunch of different characters. He became the Cisco Kid in a series of Westerns. He was Shirley Temple's kidnapper. He was Shirley Temple's rescuer. He was dancing with Carmen Miranda and Alice Faye and Betty Grable. And he just did a little bit of everything. He carried a lot of sort of lesser titles. They were originally B movies that were promoted to the A movie category, where he was the lead, and movies that we don't really remember that well, movies called like Tall, Dark, and Handsome, you know, that like that. And sometimes he was a gangster, and sometimes he was a dance hall leader, and sometimes he was this, but he was always hot. And you know, and you wanted him to get the girl, and sometimes he was a cad, but he still got the girl. You know, so in those pictures, he got the girl. In the A pictures, in the big ones, very often he didn't get the girl, or he was the second tier romantic couple. So like when he and Carmen Miranda were in Weekend in Havana, John Payne and Alice Faye were the leads, but nobody kind of remembers them. All they remember is, you know, Carmen Miranda and Cesar Romero dancing together and fighting, and you know, and they were fantastic. There are salt and pepper shakers that were popular then, of the two of them. And I paid $185 for them. Cesar and Carmen as salt and pepper shaker.
It sounds like a great deal. You could probably get 190 for them now on eBay.
I'm sure I could.
No, it's fun when you find crazy tchotchkes that you can.
Oh my God, there's this man who he makes these incredible lifelike dolls of famous people, and he's done some of Joan Crawford. And I desperately want one from her in Humorous, and it's like $1,300. And I'm like, yeah, I can't do that. You know, like that's just
Everyone go buy Cesar Romero, The Joker is Wild. We got to get Samuel enough extra
I'll
money
do a
to get this
GoFundMe campaign.
We'll get, when the book is national bestseller for like 100 weeks in a row, you'll treat yourself with the Joan Crawford.
I'll treat myself. Well, no, I'll have that doll maker. He does commissions. So I'll have him do Caesar. I'll have him do Roddy. I'll have him do Joan. We can do everybody.
Oh man, yeah, that was something I have to admit. Like my Cesar Romero knowledge was mostly Joker, and so
yeah,
you know, him hanging out with Shirley Temple, that was a nice surprise. You know, some of these things like Cisco Kid, I feel like I've heard of it, but I guess I didn't make the connection. And then before, and he was in Ocean's 11 with the Rat Pack.
He was amazing in Ocean's 11, and he steals the picture from the entire Rat Pack as far as I'm concerned. They all look like they have a hangover because they did. And he's like the guy who comes in and figures out what they're doing and tries to steal it all away from them. he's so vibrant and so like there. It's really an interesting dynamism of the contrast between, I mean, the Rat Pack was all about like, I'm back here. And Caesar was like, I'm right here. For me, he wins.
I think I made me want to like go, oh, I got to go rewatch this movie.
Well, and oh my gosh, I can't remember the actress's name. He plays, I think he's Peter Lawford's new stepfather. Is it Ina Claire? I can't remember. But the actress who plays his wife is so fantastic and so kind of above it all. And like, well, of course you were a gangster and you've been in prison, but anyone can change. It's just they're magic together.
That's amazing. All right, so let's talk about the Joker some more. So, all right, so we already talked about, speaking of Ocean's 11, how maybe Frank Sinatra was considered. Probably not. When he was hired to be the Joker, in the world of Hollywood at that time, like, where did Cesar Romero fall? Like, how well known was he, at that time?
Cesar was incredibly well known. I mean, he'd been around for years. He had just a couple of years before that got a Golden Globe nomination for a movie called If a Man Answers. That was a big Ross Hunter film with Sandra Dee and Bobby Darin. And he had a huge success in that. And he worked constantly in television. So he was, very much at the center of things. Batman was a weird project, but it had a lot of juice. It was clear. I mean, I don't think anybody knew how big of a hit it was going to be, but it was clear that ABC was putting a lot into it. They already had plans for a feature film that they were going to shoot after the first season. Like, they really, this was going to be a big deal. So I think although the comic book arena and this whole idea of this was completely foreign to Caesar, I think it was considered a good project. It wasn't like he wasn't slumming. It wasn't like, oh, yeah, I'll do that. It was like, and they made it clear from the beginning that they wanted stars to be the supervillains, that the special guest villains, they called them, that they were it was pretty clear that they were doing something that they expected to make a splash.
So he had some heat. He had some heat on him as he was coming into this role. And like to be one of the original four, meaning like Frank Gorshin or Julie Newmar or Burgess Meredith, at some point, because like you said, they didn't know it was going to be huge. At some point, everyone wanted to be on this show. It was like the place to be.
I mean, it was Love Boat, It's just the parade.
Right? As they were climbing up the wall, and like Jerry, like Sammy Davis Jr. will open up the.
Exactly. It became so popular. I mean, I think at one point it was. I sometimes I get the math confused about what's a rating share and what's a rating point and what's an average audience and this. But if I understand it correctly, at one point something like 66% of American households were watching Batman twice a week. I mean, those are numbers that are impossible to have today because of, the splintering of cable and streaming and everything else. But even in its day, it was remarkable. And that it was on twice a week, because the first episode, you always ended with the villain ahead, what's going to happen, and like with the saw going to Batman's head. And tune in, same bat time, same bat channel. And then, of course, in the second episode, then the Caped Crusaders would win. I always wanted the Joker to win.
I feel like if it was Frank Sinatra, he would have won.
I think you're right. Frank rather famously did not play well with others. And I think being in an ensemble show like Batman would have been challenging, to say the least. And one of the things that I think is so special about Caesar's work in Batman is how, I mean, he goes all out. He's, ripping the scenery apart. He's having the best time. But he's not doing it in a way that overshadows everyone else. And he has this great chemistry with Adam West as Batman. He allows everyone to shine. And I think that's part of his work ethic, but I think it's also part of just, it mattered to him. that everybody had their moment and everybody, because we're all doing this together. I think that was a big part of his ethos.
So, all right. So shine some light on this piece of Cesar Romero history / Joker history. Because in the book, this wasn't the first time this came up. So the fact that he would not shave his mustache. It was one of those things that, like, I think I read that somewhere, and then you look and you go, oh my God, you're right. There is a mustache.
Well, I don't know that everybody could tell at the time, because remember, this was broadcast television over fuzzy antenna. This was not high def. So I don't think you could really tell on TV at the time. I think it's such lore and of how weird it is and how funny it is and how perfect it is. There was really a very prosaic explanation for it, which is that Caesar was the national spokesman at the time for a line of men's suits. And at the same time that he got the Batman job, right before that, he had done all of these photographic layouts for magazines and billboards and all this stuff that was all over the country of him with his mustache. And he was going to be doing personal appearances all over America with those ads. And he's like, I can't show up looking like somebody else. Like, I have to show up with my mustache. So I don't think it was quite as much about the vanity of this is my signature. There was probably a little bit of that. But I do think there was kind of a sense of integrity about it. Like, I suppose he could have, I don't think it was contractual. It wasn't like he had to show up with the mustache, but I think he felt an obligation. He had made this commitment and they had invested all this money in all of these photos that were everywhere. He should honor his part of the bargain.
The other thing you talk about, which was interesting, because a lot of stars don't do this, when Cesar Romero is the Joker. Like, if you ask, right? And sometimes that really weighs on people when they're known as one particular thing.
I mean, Caesar loved it. Burgess Meredith didn't love it. Like, Burgess Meredith was, stop asking me to laugh. I'm a classical actor. I've done all these things. Stop it. I mean, that was his attitude about it. I don't think he barked at people. But that was his attitude. Caesar loved it. He was such an entertainer. He didn't study to be an actor. He didn't think of himself as some kind of classically trained method person or whatever. He loved entertaining. So the fact that all of these people from all of these different generations until the day he died would, come up to him and say, would you do it? Would you do the laugh? Would you do the laugh? I think it made him feel honored rather than, put upon. I don't think he ever lost that sense of, gratitude. I mean, it's a word that a lot of people throw around, in a very ungrateful way, if you ask me. But for him, I think it truly was a feeling of gratitude to all of these people who he made feel something and who wanted to communicate that back to him in some way. I think he thought that was very special.
I love it when people embrace the things that they are,
Well, it's sort of like, I mean, not to pick on someone, but, like I think of Tina Louise, who's always like, I'm not just ginger. I'm not, you know what? For whatever reason, that brought a lot of joy to a lot of people. Honor that. Even if you are sick of it, just shut up about it. Honor the fact that people have this affection for you. I think it's really mean and petty not to allow people who have that reaction to feel that and to give that the credit that I think it's due.
Yeah, and that's a good example, the Tina Louise example. I'd imagine that of all the people that have ever been in Hollywood, there's a lot that never even have that one thing.
And it's lasted so long, and it's part of the cultural fabric of our society in a weird way. I mean, I don't know why Gilligan's Island was there. I'm not sure that I feel the same affection for it as many people do, but people do. I am so tired of cynicism and irony. It is so easy to make fun of things or to, try to knock things down and talk about how crap everything is. I think if you can reach such a wide number of people who feel this affection, I think passion for that is a good thing. Even if I don't share that particular passion, I still don't want to crap all over that passion because I think that's the best part of living is passion. Why would you want to take, or as they fondly say with children in nursery school now, don't yuck my yum, you know?
I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. So if we could all be so lucky to have something that someone would want to talk to us about forever,
Well, I mean, right next to you, there's Cindy Williams, and it's like neither she nor Penny Marshall wanted to do Laverne and Shirley. And I'm like, it was magical. It was so magic. It pains me that they didn't feel that at the time. I think she did come to realize that it was very special. But it pains me to think you're doing this thing that's so amazing and you're not feeling it. You're just feeling like, I want to do movies. And yet you're creating this iconic thing that, I don't know, will kind of live on forever.
Right. And the one thing I think that both Laverne and Shirley and Gilligan's Island have in common is the extremely catchy theme songs. I think that.
Well, it didn't hurt.
Didn't hurt.
Didn't hurt.
All right. So Cesar Romero is the Joker forever, but he also, as I did love your book, by the way. I haven't said it enough, so I just want you to know. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm very glad.
I love diving in. It's exactly, the type of thing I really love, and learning about someone and all the things you didn't know. So he had to end a career with the Falcon Crest. The Falcon Crest would have been a good name too.
The Falcon Crest.
The Golden Girls.
Well, in Portuguese, it would be O Falcon Crest. So,
and keeping in the theme, The Murder, She Wrote. But Falcon Crest was probably a big one. He was on that for a couple seasons.
I mean, he actually, because he would do these little guest spots where he would sort of come back and he appears over the course of like 4 seasons, but he was hardcore during 2 seasons. It was such a gift for him that late in life. I mean, he was 80 already. And am I doing the math right? Yeah, he was 80 when he was doing it. He was billionaire Greek shipping magnate Peter Stavros, and with all the silliness that entailed. And I mean, Kim Novak is there as his stepdaughter, who isn't really his stepdaughter because his real stepdaughter was murdered. I love all that stuff. It's just, and the more ridiculous to me, the better. The fantastic thing for Cesar was that he was in an environment that was very much like his days at 20th Century Fox, where he was working with a cast and a crew where everybody was together. They were very oriented towards getting the work done. Jane Wyman was an old friend and supposed girlfriend in all of his, when Cesar, we haven't really talked about the part of his life yet, but when Cesar was an unmarried Lothario about town, he was always ready to get married to every famous actress that ever lived in the 40s and 50s and 30s, 40s and 50s. But Jane Wyman was one of those women. But they were great friends, actually, and they loved to go dancing. And so you'd get all these pictures in the fan magazines of them dancing cheek to cheek. And, the fan magazine readers would get from that, oh, they're a couple. And of course, they weren't. But working together, it gave him a sense of belonging that I think was central to his being, really. And it also put him back at the center of kind of an A-list part of Hollywood. At 80 years old, suddenly he's back at the Golden Globes presenting an award to Whoopi Goldberg. It's extraordinary that he could have that sort of final chapter where he still mattered. He mattered in Hollywood for 60 consecutive years. And that's a lot. That's really, really a lot.
That is a lot. An amazing career. Amazing career. You started to talk about, but yeah, he had a very private life.
Yes. I mean, Cesar was gay. There's no 2 ways about that. And I I don't look at that as some scandalous revelation. We're past that point, I hope, in our cultural conversation. But he was very private. The way that I've come to sort of look at all of it, it would have been impossible in that day and age for him to sort of come out. That was not possible for a Hollywood actor, but certainly not for a Hollywood leading man actor. Just impossible. But I do think that he lived a life that was very authentic. He didn't get married as many other actors did. He didn't constantly try to push a narrative of a certain like girlfriend or this or that. He was very devoted to his family. He had 3 generations of family that he took care of, and they all lived together in Brentwood in this huge compound that had like 7 bedrooms, and he built an apartment over the garage for himself. And he was devoted to that. He was devoted to his family. He was devoted to his work. I don't think that, at least from what I can tell, it doesn't seem like there were a lot of romantic involvements in his life. At least it doesn't seem that there are a lot of, there's not evidence to support that. It does seem clear that he and the very famous actor Tyrone Power were more than friends. And he alluded to that obliquely, but he did allude to it, that they were more than friends. And I think, okay, this is my own opinion. I do not know this for a fact, but I really think that Tyrone Power was kind of the love of his life. Tyrone Power died very young while he was shooting a bullfighting movie in Spain, and he died in 1958. I really think that was the love of Cesar's life. That's my opinion. As I say, I like to be careful about what I can say is true and what I can say is, well, that's the feeling I get. Like I can't say that's true, but that's the feeling I get.
All right. Well, it's a valid feeling. And I think I mean, if anyone's done the research to come to the idea of that feeling, it's you. So, all right. Seems reasonable.
I mean, I was talking to Ruta Lee, who's still around and she's very ribald, very funny. She's really a great, great lady. And she knew Cesar because she was in Witness for the Prosecution with Tyrone Power, and Cesar visited the set and they became friends. And she talked about his friendship with Tyrone Power. And she said something along the lines of, anyone could see that those 2 men cared deeply for one another. Anyone could see that. Did that translate into physical intimacy? I don't know, but I hope so. Oh my God, can you imagine the 2 of them? They were so beautiful. They would have been amazing together. Kind of how I look at it. I don't look at it as some kind of scandalous observation, that, oh my God, people have genitals and they have sex with them sometimes.
I hear you. Ruta Lee, by the way, is awesome. I got to hang out with her. I had her on the podcast. Another person that hung out with the Rat Pack.
She is fantastic. She does this. She did this TV appearance with Cesar that was so. Oh my God, she's so young and so beautiful, and I think her waist is like 15 inches, and just like. She's breathtakingly beautiful. But I remember her when I was a little boy from a Alex Trebek game show called High Rollers. And they had these giant dice, and it was like you were playing craps in the casino. And she always came out like in Mirabeau, flowy kind of things, was very glamorous. And as a little gay kid, for me, that was like, I like her.
Yeah, she's on. I mean, the work she does with the Thalians. I mean, she's still like so active and still looks amazing.
So active.
Yeah.
She has a theory, and I think she's right, frankly, that she's incredibly happy that she has done the work she's done over the years with Thalians and wouldn't trade it for anything. But she also thinks that it kind of hurt her career because it gave the appearance that she was kind of a socialite or a dilettante in some way. when she was really a very serious actress and dancer and singer, and she was and very talented. And I think she's kind of right. I think in some circles she just they sort of started thinking of her as just, the lady at the charity benefit instead of remembering, oh, she's like really talented.
Yes, but history will be kind to that decision as well, with all the good that she's
Oh,
done. Yes.
well, I mean,
So,
the work she's done is incredible. I mean, it's incredible, and the Thalians are incredible. I don't know if all of your listeners know, what they're about, but the amount of money that they've raised and the amount of work that they've done with people who need that help, they've changed lives.
again, everyone, so that Samuel can get his life-like dolls, run out, get Cesar Romero, The Joker is Wild. It's a great deep dive into Cesar Romero's life, and then the Joan Crawford book, and then there's a bunch of other books, and a Roddy McDowall one coming out, which you'll come back. I'll read that one, and then you'll come back.
I'll be happy to. But yeah, that's coming out in June. I'm very happy with how it's come out. There's so many more people alive, and Roddy was a lot more generationally broad than Caesar or Joan. So there are a lot of people that he became very close to who were a lot younger than he was, like Ileana Douglas and people, Chris Sarandon, people who are still very much around. It was really fascinating to hear directly from people who were in the room with him. I mean, he walked Ileana Douglas down the aisle. I spoke to people who were there when Roddy McDowall had Elizabeth Taylor and Sybil Burton at his deathbed, making them promise to create this rose garden at the motion picture television film home together. They were witness to these things. That was kind of really fascinating to me. That was John Glover, by the way, the actor John Glover and his husband, Adam Kurtzman. And they were there during that month when Roddy was dying. And it was just a parade of everyone famous you'd ever heard of in your entire life from 3 generations of Hollywood royalty. It was incredible the way that he created a sense of connection and intimacy with so many people. But that said, his accomplishments are so much bigger than being everybody's best friend. He accomplished quite a lot as an actor, as a director, as a photographer. I felt really, really privileged to kind of speak to all of these people and hear their stories. I mean, when people are that emotional, when they're recalling someone, and that was it. I mean, every interview had tears and laughter, and because that's how people felt about him. I like the book a lot.
I can't wait to read it, and excited. Thanks for hanging out with me. Appreciate it.
Thank you. This was really fun.
One more plug. Cesar Romero, Joker is Wild. You can get it at Amazon, everywhere books are sold. You can get all of Samuel Bernstein's books everywhere.
Everywhere. They're everywhere, all over the galaxy.